The rain of fire came without warning. One moment, the human colony on Virex 9 was alive with light and sound. The next, the sky burned. Alien warships tore through the atmosphere, their weapons striking buildings, streets, and power towers. Sirens screamed. People ran. The ground shook again and again. In the middle of the chaos, a small human child hid beneath the broken remains of a transport vehicle. He was no more than 7 years old. Dust filled his lungs. Heat burned his skin. His ears rang so loudly that he could barely hear his own crying. He called for his parents, but no one answered. The child curled into himself as another explosion hit nearby. Pieces of metal fell around him. One heavy beam pinned his leg. He screamed in pain, but the sound was swallowed by fire and noise. High above, aboard one of the alien command ships, Princess Aelthira of the Lyrian Star Dominion stood at a wide viewing window. She was not there as a warrior. She was there to observe. That was her role. Watch, learn, and report. She was not supposed to interfere. Her people believed humans were weak, too emotional, too divided. The colony was marked for removal. Collateral damage was acceptable. Altharia's long silver eyes followed the destruction below. Her hands were still, her posture perfect, but something inside her twisted with every strike. She had studied many species. She had watched many worlds fall. Yet this one felt different. Her attention locked onto a small heat signal trapped beneath wreckage. Her console zoomed in automatically. Through smoke and flame, she saw the child. He was alive. Barely. Aelthira's breath caught. The child was crying, but still trying to push the beam off his leg. His hands were shaking. His face was streaked with dirt and tears. He was alone. Orders echoed in her mind. Do not interfere. Observation only. But another thought rose stronger. He is just a child. Without speaking, Aelthira turned and walked toward the hangar. Her guards followed, confused but obedient. No one questioned the princess directly, not yet. Moments later, a single Lyrian shuttle detached from the warship and descended toward the surface. The city below was dying. Fires spread through streets. Buildings collapsed inward like sand. The shuttle weaved between falling debris, shields flaring under stray blasts. Aelthira felt every impact through the floor. Her heart raced, but her focus did not break. The shuttle landed hard near the wrecked transport. Heat washed over her as the ramp lowered. Smoke stung her senses. The air tasted sharp and burned. She stepped out. Lyrian armor shimmered over her tall form, pale blue light pulsing along its surface. To any human who might have seen her, she would have looked terrifying. Tall, alien, glowing with strange power. But the child could not see her yet. He was still trapped, coughing, crying, fading. Aelthira ran. She knelt beside the wreckage and placed her hands on the heavy beam. Her armor amplified her strength, but even so, the weight was immense. Fire burned close, licking at the metal. She lifted. The beam rose just enough. With care, she pulled the child free and gathered him into her arms. He screamed at first, terrified by the alien shape holding him. His fists struck her chest weakly. His voice cracked. "It's okay," Aelthira said softly, though she knew he could not understand her words. She adjusted her grip, shielding his face from the fire. "You are safe now." A blast hit nearby, throwing them both to the ground. Her armor absorbed most of it, but pain shot through her side. She hissed but did not let go. The child clung to her instinctively, burying his face against her armor. His crying softened into shaking breaths. Aelthira rose and ran back toward the shuttle. Enemy sensors locked onto her. Warning lights flared across her visor. She reached the ramp just as a strike hit the ground behind her. The shuttle lifted immediately, engines roaring. Inside, Aelthera collapsed into a seat, holding the child tightly. Her armor sealed around them, creating a pocket of breathable air. The child stared up at her, wide-eyed. His fear slowly changed into confusion. Then exhaustion claimed him, and he fell unconscious in her arms. Back aboard the command ship, alarms blared. Officers turned in shock as the princess returned carrying a human. "What have you done?" one commander demanded. Aelthera met his gaze without fear. "Saved a life." "That was not your mission." "No," she said quietly. "But it was the right choice." The council was furious. Her actions were called reckless, emotional, dangerous. She was stripped of future observation roles and reassigned far from command. The child was returned in secret to a human rescue ship found drifting at the edge of the system. Before placing him inside, Aelthera removed a small crystal from her armor, a Lyrian focus shard, cracked during the rescue. She placed it in the child's hand. "Live," she whispered. The human ship jumped away moments later. Years passed. The galaxy changed. Humans did not vanish as many had predicted. They adapted. They rebuilt. They learned. Slowly at first, then faster. Their technology advanced. Their fleets grew stronger. Their soldiers trained harder. Princess Aelthera rose again as well, though her path was different. She became a commander not through politics, but through experience. She protected trade routes. She negotiated ceasefires. She fought when she had to, but she never forgot the child. Sometimes in quiet moments, she wondered if he had survived, if he had grown, if her choice had mattered. Now, she stood within the grand hall of a neutral space station. Its walls were carved from ancient alloy, symbols of old alliances glowing faintly along the ceiling. Representatives from many species had gathered, including humans. Aelthera's posture was calm, controlled, but her senses were sharp. This meeting mattered. War loomed on the edges of known space. Old enemies were stirring. Alliances would decide the future. The human delegation entered. They wore dark uniforms, clean and simple. No fear showed on their faces, no hatred either. They moved with discipline, eyes alert, steps confident. Aelthera studied them closely. Then she saw him. He stood near the center of the group, tall and broad-shouldered. His presence was quiet but strong. Scars marked his hands. His eyes were steady, watchful, not arrogant, not afraid. Something deep inside her stirred. When his gaze lifted and met hers, the room seemed to fade. The noise softened. Time slowed. The human soldier did not stare in awe or hostility. He looked at her with something else, recognition. His jaw tightened. His breath caught, just slightly. His hand moved unconsciously toward a chain hidden beneath his uniform. Aelthera felt a strange pull in her chest. A memory flickered. Fire, smoke, small hands gripping her armor. No, that was impossible. The soldier looked away first, regaining control. But the moment had already passed between them, unseen by others, heavy with unspoken history. As the meeting began, Aelthera found her attention drifting back to him again and again. She noticed how he positioned himself slightly forward, as if ready to shield others. How his eyes tracked every movement in the room. A protector, just like she had been. She did not know it yet, but the child she once saved had not only survived, he had become a soldier, and fate had placed him before her once more. The meeting continued, but Princess Aelthera found it hard to focus. Voices echoed through the grand hall. Diplomats spoke of borders, threats, and rising violence in distant systems. Holographic maps shifted in the air, showing red zones spreading like slow fire. Yet her attention kept drifting back to the human soldier. He stood still, hands behind his back, posture perfect. He did not speak unless spoken to. When he did, His voice was calm and respectful. He never raised it. He never looked down on anyone in the room, not even those who clearly saw humans as lesser beings. Althea noticed how some alien representatives watched the humans with doubt, even quiet dislike. The soldier noticed it too. His expression did not change, but his body adjusted slightly, placing himself between the others and his delegation without making it obvious. She had seen that behavior before, long ago. When the session finally ended, security arrangements were announced. Due to recent threats, mixed species protection teams would be assigned to key figures. The human delegation will provide a security liaison to Princess Althea, an official said. The soldier stepped forward immediately. I volunteer, he said. The room stirred. Althea turned her gaze fully toward him. Up close, the feeling grew stronger. His face was older than the child she remembered, of course, marked by years of hardship and training, but his eyes, they were the same. She nodded once, accepted. From that moment on, he stayed near her. They walked through the station's long corridors, lights reflecting off polished walls. Other guards followed at a distance, but there was a quiet space between them. My name is Elias Ward, the soldier said at last. Human Defense Forces. Althea of Lyrian, she replied. I know your species name. I did not know yours. He gave a small smile. I'm honored. They said little else. Words felt unnecessary, even dangerous. Both were watching, listening, remembering in their own ways. Later that cycle, danger came. It started with a flicker in the station's power grid. Lights dimmed for half a second. Most did not notice. Elias did. Princess, he said quietly, already moving. Something's wrong. The next moment, an explosion tore through a nearby corridor. Shards of metal screamed through the air. Screams followed. Elias moved without hesitation. He stepped in front of Althea, shield raised, absorbing fragments meant for her. His armor sparked, but held. Move, he ordered, guiding her toward cover. Station security rushed in. Weapons fired. Smoke filled the space. Through it all, Elias stayed close, positioning himself instinctively, just as she once had done for him. They reached a secure chamber and the doors sealed behind them. Silence fell, broken only by distant alarms. Althea turned to him. Her voice was steady, but her eyes searched his face. You reacted before the blast. How? I've seen this pattern before, he replied. Sabotage meant to start panic. You saved me. He shook his head slightly. Just doing my duty. But duty alone did not explain the way his hands had trembled after, or how he had checked her for injuries before checking himself. Hours later, after the attackers were neutralized, the station entered lockdown. Travel was restricted. Althea was advised to remain in protected quarters. Elias was assigned outside her door. Time passed slowly. During a quiet moment, Althea approached him.
You carry something important with you, she said gently.
I sense it. Elias hesitated. Then, slowly, he reached beneath his uniform and pulled out a thin chain. At its end hung a small, cracked crystal, faintly glowing. Althea froze. Her breath caught. Her hand lifted without permission. That is, her voice faltered. A focus shard, Elias said softly. Alien, Lyrian. Her mind raced back through memory. Fire. Pain, a cracked shard falling loose as she lifted the child. I have carried it my whole life, he continued.
I was told it was nothing. Scrap.
But I knew better. She looked at him fully now. Why? Because the one who saved me left it behind. His eyes met hers, unflinching. You. The word struck her like a shockwave. You were a child, she whispered. Yes, Elias said. I was trapped. I was scared. I thought I was going to die. Then you came. Aelthira closed her eyes. For a moment, she was not a commander or a princess. She was that younger version of herself, kneeling in fire. I was told it did not matter, she said, that humans were insignificant. Elias shook his head. It mattered to me. That moment shaped everything. He told her of his life after, of recovery, of joining the military not for revenge, but for protection, of standing between danger and others because someone once did that for him. I never forgot you, he said. I didn't even know your name, but I remembered your actions. Silence stretched between them, heavy and real. Outside, the galaxy edged closer to war. Inside that quiet space, something deeper formed, understanding. Alarms suddenly blared again. Emergency signals flashed across the chamber walls. Multiple hostile ships emerging from hyperspace, a voice announced. This station is under direct attack. Alira's expression hardened. They want to kill hope before it can grow. Elias straightened. Then we don't let them. Together they moved toward the exit, not as princess and guard, but as two lives connected by a single act of mercy. And as the first enemy shot struck the station, the past and present finally aligned, preparing them for the fight ahead. The station shook as the first enemy shot struck its outer hull. Warning lights flashed red across every corridor. The calm order of diplomacy vanished in seconds, replaced by chaos. Artificial gravity flickered. Somewhere far away, metal screamed as it tore apart. Princess Alfira stood still for only a heartbeat. Then training took over. Evacuation routes? She asked. Primary routes compromised, Elias replied, already checking his wrist display. Secondary paths still open, but not for long. Alfira nodded. Then we move now. They stepped into the corridor together. Smoke drifted from broken panels. Station guards ran past them, escorting civilians toward escape pods. Some aliens froze when they saw Alfira, unsure whether to follow her orders or their own commanders. Follow me, she said, her voice calm but firm. They did. Elias moved at her side, weapon raised, eyes sharp. He did not question her decisions. He trusted her instincts completely. That trust was returned just as fully. Explosions echoed closer. The attackers were not random pirates. Their movement was organized. Their timing precise. They planned this, Elias said. They knew leaders from multiple species would be here. Yes, Aelthira replied. They fear unity. A blast tore open a side passage ahead. Debris crashed down. Screams followed. Without hesitation, Elias ran forward. He pulled two wounded civilians from the wreckage while Alfira raised a shimmering energy barrier, holding back fire and falling metal. They worked together without speaking, their movements smooth, almost familiar. Once the civilians were clear, the barrier collapsed. Aelthira staggered slightly. Elias caught her arm. You're hurt, he said. It is minor, she answered. We continue. Enemy drones appeared at the far end of the corridor, weapons glowing. Elias fired first. Precise shots disabled two drones mid-air. Aelthira followed, unleashing controlled energy bursts that shattered the rest. Watching them fight side by side, station guards felt something shift. Fear eased. Confidence returned. They fight like one unit, someone whispered. They reached a command hub where surviving leaders had gathered. Panic filled the room. Multiple species argued at once, each blaming the other. Alfira stepped forward. Silence, she said. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. The room quieted. This attack is not about old grudges, she continued. It is about stopping cooperation. If we fall apart now, we give them exactly what they want. A human commander stepped beside Elias. Our fleets are incoming, but they'll need time. So will ours, said a Lyrian officer, but the station will not last that long. Aelthera looked at the tactical display. Her eyes narrowed. Then we hold. How? Someone demanded. She turned to Elias. There is an inner defense ring, correct?
Yes, he said.
Old system, not meant for this level of attack.
But it still functions, she said. If we combine human adaptive targeting with Lyrian energy modulation, we can strengthen it. The room fell silent again. That would require shared command, an alien noble said sharply. Yes, Aelthera replied. It would. All eyes turned to her. A princess offering shared control was unheard of. Elias spoke next. I'll do it. He did not look at his own leaders for permission. He looked only at Aelthera. She inclined her head. Then it is decided. They moved quickly. Data flowed between systems never meant to connect. Human engineers worked alongside alien technicians, hands moving fast, minds focused. Outside, the enemy fleet closed in. The first combined defense pulse fired. It was stronger than expected. Enemy ships faltered as their shields flickered. Confusion rippled through their formation. They didn't expect this, Elias said. Aelthera allowed herself a small smile. Few ever do. But victory was not yet theirs. A massive enemy cruiser broke through the outer line, firing directly at the station's core. If that hits, Elias began. I know, Aelthera said. We must intercept. There's no time to reroute power, an officer shouted. Aelthera stepped toward the central console. Then I will do it directly. Elias grabbed her arm. You'll overload your armor. I will survive, she said. He shook his head. You don't know that. She looked at him then, truly looked. Years ago, I did not know if you would survive either. He understood. Together, they placed their hands on the console. Human neural interface. Lyrian energy channeling. Systems screamed in protest. Power surged. The defense ring fired again, this time focused, precise, overwhelming. The enemy cruiser shattered in a blinding flash. Silence followed, then cheers. But the cost was immediate. Aelthera collapsed to one knee, her armor dimming. Elias caught her, lowering her gently to the floor. Aelthera, he said urgently. She struggled to focus. Did it work? Yes, he said. You saved everyone. Her vision blurred. Then it was worth it. Medical teams rushed in. As they worked, Elias stayed close, refusing to leave. She survived, but recovery would take time. When she awoke later in a secure medical chamber, Elias was there. You should be resting, she said weakly. So should you, he replied, not moving. For a moment, neither spoke. You were right, Aelthera said finally. One act can change many futures. He nodded. You proved that twice. Outside the chamber, news spread fast. Humans and aliens had fought together, trusted each other, won. Across the station, across nearby systems, something new took root. Hope, but. And far away, enemies listened and prepared to strike harder. The war was no longer coming. It had begun. Recovery did not bring peace. Princess Aelthera healed slowly, her body strong but strained from the power she had forced through it. While she rested, the galaxy burned brighter with war. Reports arrived every cycle. Outposts attacked, convoys destroyed, entire systems forced to choose sides. Humans and Lyrians now stood together in public, but unity brought enemies. Some Lyrian nobles whispered that Aelthera had gone too far. They said she trusted humans too easily. They said she had weakened tradition. Others, especially younger officers and border commanders, spoke her name with respect. They had seen what humans could do when treated as equals. Elias returned to duty as soon as the station stabilized. He was promoted quietly, without ceremony. He did not ask for it. He only accepted the responsibility. Before departing, he visited Althira. "You're leaving," she said, sitting upright in her chamber, strength slowly returning. "Yes," he replied. "Frontline coordination mission, joint command, dangerous." He smiled slightly. "All the important ones are." She studied him. "You will come back." It was not a question.
I will,
he said. War spread like wildfire. Enemy forces struck supply lines first, then colonies. They avoided large fleets and focused on fear. Worlds fell not because they were weak, but because they felt alone. Althira refused to let that continue. Once cleared for command, she returned to space. Not to a palace, but to a mobile fleet. She met with human officers as equals. Plans were shared openly. Mistakes were admitted. Trust grew, not from words, but from survival. Elias became her link to the human forces, often fighting far from her position. Still, they stayed connected. Messages were brief but steady. Strategy mixed with concern. On the battlefield, humans fought differently than most species. They adapted fast. They protected civilians even when it cost them advantage. They pulled wounded allies from fire, no matter their species. Lyrians noticed. During one major evacuation on the world of Saren's Fall, enemy forces broke through early. Panic swept the city. Transports were overloaded. Time ran out. Althira arrived with her fleet and deployed ground units immediately. She moved through the streets herself, coordinating defense and evacuation. Then the enemy struck again. A massive artillery blast collapsed a tower near the evacuation route. Hundreds were trapped. Without hesitation, Althira ran toward the ruins. Her guards shouted for her to stop. She ignored them. She raised shields, lifted debris, and guided survivors out until another blast struck closer than expected. The shockwave threw her against broken stone. Pain exploded through her side. Her armor failed in places. Darkness crept in. She tried to rise. Her body refused. Enemy fire advanced. A human unit broke through the smoke. Elias was at the front. He saw her on the ground and did not slow. Rounds struck around him. One tore into his shoulder. He kept moving. He reached her, dropped to one knee, and lifted her carefully. "Still saving people without backup?" he said, voice tight. She tried to smile. "You always arrive late." He activated a beacon and turned his body, shielding her completely as enemy fire closed in. "Get her out!" he shouted to his squad. They formed a moving barrier around them. Humans and Lyrians fought side by side, covering every angle. They did not retreat until every survivor was clear. Althira faded in and out of consciousness, aware only of Elias's steady grip and voice. "You're not done yet," he told her. "Not today." She survived. The footage spread across the galaxy. A Lyrian princess wounded while protecting civilians. A human soldier carrying her through fire. The whispers changed tone. Doubt weakened. Respect grew. But enemies watched too. They realized something dangerous had formed. Not an alliance built on fear or power, but on loyalty. The enemy gathered their forces for one final, crushing strike. A fleet larger than any seen in generations. Their goal was simple. Break the bond. Destroy the symbol. They targeted a system where human and Lyrian fleets were preparing a joint defense. Althira insisted on leading. "So do I," Elias said. The battle that followed was brutal. Enemy ships poured in from multiple vectors, space filled with fire, wreckage, and dying signals. The Allied fleet held formation longer than expected, but pressure mounted. Human pilots adapted routes mid-fight. Lyrian ships reinforced weak points instantly. Orders flowed both ways without delay. Still, numbers began to tell. An enemy strike punched through the line and headed straight for the command vessel, Elthira's ship. "Redirect power," she ordered. "Too slow," an officer replied. Impact in seconds. Elias was already moving. He took control of a nearby strike craft and launched without clearance.
Elias, pull back,
Althira ordered.
Negative,
he said. "Trust me." He flew straight into the incoming fire, drawing attention. Enemy targeting systems locked onto him. He smiled grimly and activated every countermeasure at once. Human trickery met alien precision. The enemy formation broke just long enough. Althira seized the moment. "All units," she commanded. "Focus fire now!" The combined fleet struck as one. The enemy flagship shattered. Silence followed. The remaining hostile ships fled. Victory came not with cheers, but with exhausted relief. Elias's craft limped back, damaged but intact. When he landed aboard Althira's ship, she was waiting. "You disobeyed a direct order," she said. "Yes," he replied. She stepped closer. "You risked your life." "Yes." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she placed her hand over his chest, just above his heart. "You saved more than me," she said quietly. "You saved what we are building." He covered her hand with his own. "You started it." The war was not over, but the outcome was no longer uncertain. Across the galaxy, species chose sides, not based on fear, but on example. And at the center of it all stood a princess and a soldier, bound by a promise made in fire long ago, now strong enough to change the fate of worlds. The final phase of the war did not begin with a single battle. It began with silence. Across several systems, enemy fleets pulled back, attacks slowed. Scouts reported strange movements near the edge of known space. Something large was gathering, something patient. Princess Althira knew what that meant. "They are planning an ending," she said during a joint command briefing. "Not a victory, an erasure." Human and alien commanders studied the projections. A massive enemy armada was forming around a dead star system, one with unstable gravity wells and violent energy storms. "They want us to come to them," Elias said. "They think the environment will break our coordination." "Then we prove them wrong," Althira replied. The Allied decision was not easy. Entering that system meant risk on every level. Navigation would be difficult. Communication would be unstable. Retreat might be impossible, but allowing the enemy to strike first would be worse. So the Allied fleets moved together. As ships entered the dead system, space itself seemed to twist. Sensors screamed warnings. Energy storms crackled like lightning across empty space. Gravity pulled and pushed without rhythm. Enemy ships emerged from the darkness. The battle began immediately. Fleets clashed in close range, where precision mattered more than numbers. Human ships adapted flight paths in real time, using chaos instead of fighting it. Lyrian vessels stabilized zones of space with controlled energy fields. The two styles merged into something new. Elias commanded a forward assault unit, his voice steady despite the storm of signals and fire. He trusted his pilots. He trusted Althira. Althira commanded from the center, her presence calm and unshaken. Orders flowed clearly. She adjusted strategy every second, reading the battlefield like a living thing. The enemy pushed hard, throwing wave after wave into the fight. They believed numbers would win. They were wrong. When an enemy battleship broke through and targeted a group of evacuation vessels, human fighters intercepted without hesitation. Several took heavy damage. One pilot refused to disengage until the civilians were clear. Lyrians saw that. They adjusted their formation to protect the humans. The enemy faltered, but the enemy leader was not finished. From deep within the system, a massive structure activated, an ancient weapon designed to collapse local space. If it fired, the entire system would be destroyed, taking both fleets with it. "It's a dead man trigger," Elias said. "If they lose, they take everyone." Iothera stared at the data. "There is one chance." She turned to Elias. "A direct strike team." He nodded. "I'll lead it." "You may not return," she said. "I know." For a moment, the battlefield faded. Only the two of them remained in that quiet space between decisions. "You once saved a child," Elias said. "This is me returning the favor." She placed her hand against his armor, the same place she had touched before. "Come back," she said. "That is an order," he smiled. "I'll do my best." The strike team launched into the storm. Slipping past enemy defenses using combined human and Lyrian tech, they reached the structure's core as the weapon began charging. Time was short. Inside, the enemy fought desperately. The corridors shook. Power surged wildly. Elias pushed forward, injured but focused. His team disabled control nodes one by one. Each step cost more energy, more strength. At the core chamber, Elias reached the main control interface. It was alien, hostile, designed to resist intrusion. He placed the cracked focus shard against it. The shard reacted. Energy flowed, not violently, but smoothly. The interface responded, confused by something it did not understand. Compassion, the system shut down. Outside, the enemy weapon went dark. The enemy fleet broke. Some fled. Some surrendered. The rest were destroyed. Silence returned to the system. Elias collapsed as his team secured extraction. He was alive. Barely. Back aboard the flagship, Elthira waited. When he was carried in, wounded and unconscious, she did not hide her relief. She stood beside him through every moment of recovery, ignoring politics, ignoring rank. When he finally woke, the war was over. The enemy threat had ended. Days later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered again, this time not in fear, but in recognition. Elthira stood before them, Elias at her side. "This war did not end because one side was stronger," she said. "It ended because we chose to stand together." She gestured to Elias. "Years ago, I saved a human child, because it was right. I did not know it would matter." Elias spoke next. "It mattered, not because I survived, but because I learned what kind of galaxy was worth protecting." The council voted. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were recognized as protectors, equals, and leaders. New alliances formed. Trade reopened. Rebuilding began. Later, far from cameras and halls, Elthira and Elias stood at a viewport, watching stars pass quietly. "The galaxy feels different," Elias said.
"Yes," Iothira replied.
"Because it remembers." She looked at him.
What will you do now?
He thought for a moment.
Keep protecting?
"But not alone," she nodded. "Neither will I." They stood together, not as princess and soldier, not as alien and human, but as proof that one act of kindness could echo across years, across species, across the stars. And this time, the future did not burn. It waited,